Thank you. So, for those of you that remember me last year, you heard all about me. And today, we're going to talk about you. So, I want you to close your eyes just for a second. I'm going to ask you a question. I want you to think about where you work best. I want you to pretend that Saul has given you an assignment, and you have to, in very great detail, summarize every single speaker that you've heard from Biff. So this is your task. So I want you to imagine the space that you're going to go to do this. And it could be you're drawing it, you're typing it, you're writing it. Okay, you can open your eyes. Otherwise, you're going to fall asleep. The space that you're in, how many of you were working next to other people? Raise your hand. A few of you. Okay, you're good people. You can work in a coffee shop with chaos running around you, right? The problem with work for a lot of us is we have to work with other people. And just like living with other people, that can be difficult. I grew up with a brother who was older and was a cross between the Tasmanian devil and Pigpen. And I was not like that. And it was so frustrating because I would clean the kitchen and he'd come home and in 10 minutes it would be a disaster. And my mother would come back, why are you so messy? And I'm like, I just cleaned it. Sometimes that's how we feel when we work with other people, right? It's like the loud talker over here, all these things going on. I can't concentrate. I can't do what I need to do. And so we see things like this in the media, and this is my favorite one. Open plan offices were devised by Satan in the deepest caverns of hell. Some of you agree with that, right? After the last Great Recession, we had this issue in workplace where no one was expanding. Everyone was trying to keep their doors open, so they just packed everyone in, and it was all about efficiency, right? It was all about putting as many people in together. There wasn't any amenities. You should be lucky you have a job, right? The future of work is people. We designed for people. And no matter what happens with automation and computers and technology, we still need to come together as people. So the speed of change is what we've been sort of talking about the last day and a half. And we know it's changing faster and more rapid than it has ever happened before. What does this happen to a human being when there's so much change? The stress level goes up, right? You become anxious. Now, there's a few of us in the room, the innovation junkies, that like new things and to do new, different things all the time. I hate going to the same restaurants. I hate staying at the same hotel. I like it new, right? But the majority of people like consistency. They like to know what they're expecting. And so when you have a company that you're working for in 18 months and you've had 5 different leaders with different philosophies, that's hard, right? It's really, really hard. So there's a lot of stress and just trying to be competitive in the workplace. So I'm going to give you some numbers. 7.3 years. That is the average life expectancy of a company from birth to death. 7.3 years. As an interior designer, when I'm working with a client, 10, 15 years ago, we were designing things to last 20, 30 years. And so you might look at this number and go, well, yeah, but think about all the startups, and a lot of those fail. Not just startups. 52% of the year 2000's Fortune 500 firms are no longer listed, right? So they might be gone, they might have just fallen down, but this tells us how much change is happening in the workplace. The number one issue that we're trying to tackle in the workplace is what our last speaker just talked about. It's depression. It is burnout. That is the number one issue we are trying to solve. And so the space that we design might not necessarily prevent that, but it can definitely cause barriers for people to be successful or not. So how do we design what matters? If my company is only going to be around for 7.3 years, how do I need to design that space so that it works for people, so that people can function, so that they can be productive, and we can be successful? So in interior design, we've been looking for this holy grail for the last 30 years. And the holy grail is something really simple. If I do this, and then this, and then this, that will equal productivity for my people. So I literally will get companies that say, AJ, if we put this type of furniture in this type of space, can you promise me my people will be 20% more productive? No, I can't. But we did go out to research this, and we spent 4 years with a bunch of partners, and we said, okay, let's see if we can find the Holy Grail. And 4 years later, guess what? There is none. But we did notice that there were some things that were highly correlative to knowledge worker productivity. And knowledge workers are basically people that are all of you, except for maybe the oyster farmer, who is in the field, but he's innovative, so he might also be a knowledge worker. But if you're in a plant, if you're in the field, you are a worker, but a knowledge worker is someone that might be, roaming around mobily or in an office and working with data and numbers and conversations. So pretend you're a CEO. Okay, gentlemen? You're CEOs, right here in the front. You're the nicest dressed people here. You all have suits on. Okay, gentlemen, so let's pretend you're a CEO. And you're probably going to get this answer right. None of you will, but they will. So I come to visit your company, and I walk in and I go, oh my gosh, I was just standing over at the water cooler, and I was talking to a bunch of your employees, and they were talking about the game last night, and we were having such a good time. They're so much fun, and they really seem to like each other, and they're all getting along really, really well. You have a great team. Now, if you're a CEO of 20 years ago, you have this little thing in the back of your brain, the old CEO brain that's going, as soon as you hear standing around the water cooler, oh my God, they're not working. There's that deadline. There's that midnight. What are they doing? Talking to each other and having fun, right? But you guys don't think that way, do you? You're like, this is good. They're a good team, right? So guess what? The number one factor that is linked to knowledge worker productivity is social cohesion. Social cohesion. That is a really good thing, that they're standing around the water cooler talking and learning how to get along. And so there's all sorts of things that go into social cohesion, right? So if I feel like I trust my team and I can share things with them, I'm going to brainstorm. I'm going to let my ideas flow. I'm going to take more risks. If my best friend Elke and I are working on a project and I trust her implicitly, I'm going to say, let's try and get it done faster. Or let's try and do it even better. And wouldn't it be great if we did this? Because I trust her and I know she has my back. So the question a lot of times when we survey people is this: members of our team help each other on the job. Some of you, I know, have worked with people in the past that are like, no, they did not help me. Oh, no. Has anybody watched Brené Brown's TED Talks on vulnerability? I love her. She talks, and it was, as a designer, it really hit a light bulb for me. She talks about being vulnerable is a really, really good thing, right? Because once you're vulnerable and you feel that you can be vulnerable, you will say something. You will express your ideas. You will not hold back. And so we're in a very different day now. I think last year, if any of you remembered when Philip Shepard was speaking, he put up a picture of Harvey Weinstein. And he asked, Does anybody know who this is? And one person recognized his picture. A couple weeks later, everything exploded. You all can recognize his picture now, right? So with the Me Too movement, we're looking at this psychologically safe environment in space a little bit differently. How does a young woman feel going into a private office with no windows with a leader that is a man? How does that feel for them? Does that feel psychologically safe? Or you see articles in Fast Company about women that are in open office and they have no place to hide because there is absolutely no privacy in their space, and they feel that they're getting ogled by a certain person, but they haven't said anything, they haven't done anything, but they just are staring at them all day, and they end up leaving the company because they feel like they're getting harassed, but they can't prove it. So we have to look at space differently because we're humans, and we're designing for humans. So if I have to take my girlfriends, Kimberly Motley and Cheryl Winterick, and we're gonna have a little powwow, I wanna do it someplace like this, right? I feel like we could solve all the immigration problems and kick some butts, probably with Kimberly there, by getting in a space like this. It feels more residential, it feels more relaxed. I feel like I could be there for a couple hours and have a really great session. Versus think of that old meeting room with no windows, right? And a conference table and 6 ugly chairs, and now you have to come up with a great idea. Or a space like this that has lots of natural light. Light is important. I live in Minnesota, and if you can't tell, and we have 4 nice days out of the year. And so when the light comes out, I'm like, literally, I will lay down on my carpet in my living room and just like let it beam into me. So here's a lovely office space in Atlanta, and do you see the garage door that they have that you can open and we can go out there? And I'm in there in January going, open the door, open the door. This is amazing. And they're all looking at me like, but then it might get hot. I'm like, I don't care. Open the door, let's go outside, right? We need light. We don't live without light. We need it in our space. So let's pretend I am a young woman, and I'm going to go meet with a guy who I don't quite trust that I work with. If I'm meeting in a space like this so we can have a private conversation, and it would be a different feeling if that was completely closed. But now that it has transparency, and if he's saying things that are kind of inappropriate and I'm making these kind of faces, someone's going to see that and can hopefully come and rescue me, right? So we have to think about these interactions a little bit differently. Second one is perceived supervisory support. The key word here is perceived, because some of us need more support than others. My manager, I see twice a year. I have a phone call with him every 2 weeks, but I like it that way. I'm very independent. I send him like, this is what we're gonna talk about. We go through and he goes, that's great, AJ. I'm like, do you need me to do anything else? Nope, keep doing what you're doing. I'm like, great. Somebody else might be like, well, I don't know. What else should I be doing? They might need more mentoring. They might need more coaching. They might need whatever, and that's fine. But you can see the perception is different. So what you do for one employee doesn't always work for the other one. So in a space, can I find my boss? Are they tucked away in a conference room in enclosed walls that we don't even know that they're there? I always love it when sometimes I go into lots of different spaces, and we're doing, like, for instance, a hackathon or something like that, and we'll be in the basement, and nobody else in the company knows we're there, and I emerge, and they're like, where have you been all day? And I'm like, I've been working since 6 a.m. But I'm hidden down in the basement. They can't find me. So if we look at spaces like this, number one, this is a private office, but you can see there's a lot of transparency still. So if I really need to go and get my boss for something, and I tap on the window, and they're on the phone, and I'm like, I need you. Right? We've all done that, right? I at least have a connection. They go, okay, all right, yeah, and they will come find me. I also want you to notice how non-gender this private office looks, right? It can be a female or a male. This is another two private offices, but notice it's out in the open. Now, this is a small company of about 30 people, and for these two leaders, it's very important that they overhear and they can tell when someone needs help because they want to jump up and they want to go and lead, direct, and help. Now, there is a bunch of private spaces that these leaders and other people can use that are right behind this wall. It's not saying that you shouldn't have any privacy. Privacy is important. Think about your own home. Would you put your bathroom or your bedroom in your living room? No. Some things are best left private, right? It's the same thing at work. You don't want to be completely exposed all the time. When people feel like they do not have a place to go to deal with something, the stress level goes way up. 54% of all workers are dealing with some sort of financial stress, personal financial stress at work. 54%. Now, out of those 28 of the 54, if they don't feel that they can handle it at work and can't because they feel that they can't solve it, their stress level goes way, way up. And this is leading to depression, loneliness, burnout, all those things that are really terrible for us. Third one, information sharing. Everyone loves the word collaboration. If someone could come up with a new word that's not collaboration, that is good, I will pay them $1,000. I'm sick of saying collaboration. The problem with that, it's like what I think is collaboration and somebody else thinks it's collaboration can mean two different things. Information sharing looks like a lot of different things. Information sharing is sometimes knowing who to go to or where to go to get what I need, right? The whole concept of open plan is that you have people that can overhear and learn and get some of that tacit knowledge that's not written down anywhere. And that can be good for coaching and mentoring, but it has to be balanced, right? You have to also have places to go when you have to write your report for Saul on every single speaker at BIF, detailed, right? You've got to be able to have choices, right? So information sharing, I might ask a client, one of their employees, our team members share their experiences or know-how with other team members. This is mentoring, this is coaching, right? So looking like a space, this is an actual project in Chicago. This is a cafe, but also can be for a whole town hall meeting. You could have all the employees there. Or you could take those tables away, put in ping pong tables, and have a tournament. And then you've got the bleachers right there. You can do a lot of things, and that's one of the things that we're trying to do with design, because things are changing so fast, making sure things do more than one thing. Right? This is the cafe. It also can be an individual space that's working. It could be a meeting space. What happens if those two women that are talking about something, the male overhears something and is like, hey, yeah, we were working on that too. Let me give you a little perspective. That is called good, right? We want that to happen. Or it could be a multi-use space like this that can function for individual work or 2 to 3 people meeting, but then also can be moved around by the people that are in there to make 20 people be able to meet, 2 people be able to meet, 3 people to be able to meet. It's being called agile. Being able to meet people's needs and let them move things around and not wait for a facility to come in and make this happen. The fourth one, which I find is the hardest one for most of the clients, it doesn't matter if they're big or small or whatever, to really understand, is vision and goal clarity. And this, it's interesting, all the research has shown, no matter what you do, as a company grows, this starts to get lost. The more people you add in an organization, the bigger that you make it, the harder it is to communicate to everybody that works for that organization. That is proven. Now, there's a project that I'm going to show you called Be the Match. And Be the Match is not a dating service. Be the Match is the National Bone Marrow Registry. They save people's lives, literally. And we had to take 4 buildings and put them into one building, 1,200 people. Now, does everyone that worked for them feel like they're saving people's lives? Well, no. They're an accountant, or they're the janitor, or they're doing other things. They're maybe not the people that are directly linking up the donors with the recipients. But we wanted to make sure in this space they felt like they were a part of that process. So look at the visual on the back of the break room wall. Look at all those words: compassion, resources, resourcefulness, cure, right? This is one of my other favorite walls. This is in the middle of the building, just walking into another meeting space. We wish there were words beautiful enough to express our gratitude for saving our daughter's life. You really, truly feel when you're in there that you are saving people's lives. Doesn't matter if you are the accountant. I felt like I was saving people's lives just helping to design the space. That culture resonated no matter where you were in the building of this is our purpose. And if people understand this is our purpose and this is what we're trying to achieve, they will do their job well. And maybe with even more passion that you could ever ask for. The 5th one is external outreach. And it's a little bit of a funny term, but let me explain it in this way. It's this integration of public and private. So when we talk about like a company having the ivory tower, they don't understand what's happening in the field, right? So what you're doing right now is external outreach. You are coming someplace, you're cross-pollinating, hopefully not co-pollinating, cross-pollinating, and you're sharing each other's ideas, and you're trying to see what else is happening in the world. So how are we doing this in space? So a lot of you have seen or maybe do work in a co-working space. That's the whole idea. It's not to work by yourself, especially if you're a creative person. That's really, really hard to work by yourself sometimes. You need people to feed off on, and that's why co-working spaces are continuing to thrive. And even for people that work in large companies are using a lot of co-working spaces because they need to have that external outreach. This is a project I worked on in Montana. I'm not from Montana, but it's Northwestern Energy, and it was in a historic building, and they put it into a brand new building, and they built it from the ground up. And the first floor, you can see at the ground level, is a huge conferencing suite. And guess what? Community can work in there. The community can go in and have meetings in there. It's not just for their company. That's how they get the public integrated. And right before all the conference centers, you have like the historical museum, so you can see everything about the company, and it's really trying to blend those two things. So you don't need card access on the first floor, but if you want to go above that, you do. And we're seeing more and more companies operate that way. The last one is trust. We're people. We need to trust each other. We need to form teams that can trust each other. So if I don't trust my leaders, how hard am I going to work for that organization? If I don't trust horizontally with my peers, how much information am I going to share with them? Or am I going to hold it all to me and take it on over here and not share, right? So it's relying on the character, the ability, and you could see this is how social cohesion really comes in. Now, some of you are thinking, well, there's so many virtual teams now, and I work with virtual teams, and we're not always in the same place. 89% of virtual teams will not be efficient or effective in their project if they do not meet in person first. 89% of virtual teams still need to meet first, because guess what? 98% of all communication is nonverbal. And once you meet them and you get to know them, then you can work more virtually. But if you don't do that in the beginning, forget it. So here's a boardroom, an executive boardroom, but look at how transparent it is. So people might be working next to it or might be having meetings outside of it, which is totally fine, versus the level of the executive level that everything's happening and no one can get onto unless they have a pass, right? Making sure that that trust is felt throughout the space, and not everything should be transparent, right? But we might want some things that used to be in closed doors. If it's out in the open, people will feel more confident. This is also Be the Match. We had lots of team spaces, meeting spaces that were right next to the working spaces because they really felt that was important to increase the trust of their employees, that nothing was really secret. And guess what? There might be some innovation if they overhear something or do something because they have a strong mobile worker contingency as well. And then people need to be alone. Alone is good. So if I want to go sit in that pink chair and look out the window and just get my thoughts and get some restorative time, or I might be in a private room to have a private phone call or writing down some notes, do I feel like my boss is going to think I'm not working, right? I need to feel like I'm trusted to work where I want to, when I want to, how I want to. And the next generation is coming, which you're going to hear from the next generation, is demanding that. They want choices. If we don't give them choices, they're gone. So, again, the speed of change is crazy, right? It's going on and on and on and on. It's hard to keep up to it. And we've talked about all these 6 factors and all these 6 things, which if you're looking for the research, I'm going to give you a link in a second. Who remembers the Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Anybody? Remember that in school? You can't get to self-actualization until you've addressed some of the things below it. So if I'm talking about basic safety, I want to feel like I'm not getting harassed at work. I want to feel like I'm safe from an active shooter situation, right? These are the conversations we're having at work now. Basic ergonomics, if I'm too hot, I'm too cold, it's too bright, it's too noisy, it's too loud, whatever, I can't concentrate, I can't work. So if I need to achieve wellness in any space, I have to have addressed these other things first. Otherwise, you're going to get the headlines that Satan designed your office space, right? So here is the link to the white paper, which is free. Just go to the allsteeloffice.com website and you can download. There's actually infographics. There's a couple different versions, an executive version, a small version, and a big version for knowledge worker productivity. And on that note, I'm going to leave you with this last question. What change are you going to implement to help make your team more successful? Thank you.